Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed watching David and Justin kick off our 24 hours of extra life streaming with the Founders QA. My name is Eric Jordan, and I am the CEO of Codename Entertainment, and I'm here with Codename developer Nick Wilson, joining me as my producer today. Thank you, Nick. Both of us use he, him pronouns, and today we are going to explore making Dungeons & Dragons props and tactile storytelling, and in particular how, I guess someone who loves being a DM, as how I have loved to DM for many, many years. I can't do character voices or anything like that, so this is kind of the way that I've found to bring these worlds to life. So I'm delighted to talk to you about that today. Specifically, I'm going to walk through making this prop right here. This is the Rules of Dungeon Survival by X the Mystic. It's this cool little prop that opens up, folds open like this, and then folds open like that. And we'll get some close-ups and stuff like that soon, but not just yet. So you can see that. So I'm going to sort of walk through how to make that. So by the end of this stream, you will be able to make one of these. I'll go through all the materials and all that kind of stuff. Oh, right, questions. If you have questions, put questions in the thing. My handy dandy producer there, Nick, is going to be pulling questions, and we've got a piece towards the end where we can kind of answer questions, as that makes sense. But if there's something that's just not clear, I guess I can stop along the way. I do have a caveat. I hope you'll forgive me this one thing. So today I'm talking about something that I love as a hobby, making all these D&D props. My day job, of course, is CEO of Codename Entertainment, but I'm not really here in that capacity right now. So if you've got questions about me as the CEO or CEOing in general or any of that kind of stuff, happy to answer that like at a different time if there's enough interest in that. Maybe come on one of the many Codename streams that we do. Happy to do that. But now is not the time that I'm doing that. So yeah. So donations. Thank you to everyone so far who's donated through buying stuff in-game. We've got the charity items, things like that. If you want to skip the whole making, maybe you want to kind of hear about this, but it's really not that bad, and I think you can more or less, everyone here should be able to make what the stuff I'm going through today, including all the aging and things. But if you want to skip that, then what you can do is you can make a donation, and you can just get this. Oh, right, and I think we're in the close-up for this one. There we go. There we go. So let's see, I'm looking over there. Let's switch over here. Yes, there we go. Okay, a little further forward. Too far forward? Where am I? Am I in frame? Listen, yeah. Okay, good. Okay, so if you're excited about getting this and you're like, that's cool and all that I can make it, but I would rather just do a donation and get one, then if you go to my Extra Life page as part of the Codename team, which Wilson can drop in chat for everyone there, and you make a donation of $45, there's an incentive thing on the right-hand side. You go click the incentive, you make a donation of $45, and then I will mail you one of these that I have already made. I'll even cover the postage on doing that. So you can do that if you're like, I really want to make one of these. I like listening to this, and that's all cool, but I don't want to make one, which is cool. That's cool. You can, I'm sure. I believe in you. My Bob Ross, I believe in you. Happy little props. You can make one of these, but if you don't and you want to make a donation, that's great. You can do that. Now, if you go to that Extra Life page, which Wilson, I'm sure, has posted right away, nods, you will see that there is another prop up there, which is this one, the sea shanty for the Bitch Queen. Bitch Queen being Umberlee, goddess of the sea in the Forgotten Realms. This is another one of the props that I've made. This prop I've been doing for a little bit now is for donations. If you don't want to do $45 or you're an Umberlant and you pray to the Bitch Queen, Umberlee, then you can make a donation for $15 and I will send you one of these. This particular prop, which has got all of the chanting and stuff inside, or the sea shanty inside, all aged and everything. This actually is inspired by a collectible in Baldur's Gate 3. If you've played that fantastic game by Larian Studios, you will have seen Sea Shanty for the Bitch Queen in one of the first areas. You will have seen that there as something that you can get. And in the original Baldur's Gate 3, you can get these first bits And then there was a fan, and there's a link that I'll share in a doc that wrote out and set the whole thing to music. And so I transcribed the rest of the fan's work and then set it all out. So if paper props are cool and you'd like to kind of do this tactile storytelling for your D&D games, or you just kind of want them around for their pure aesthetic value, then, but you don't want to make them, you can get these through donations. I guess, what have I got? Oh, yes. So I committed to making 100 of these. I've already sent out 74. So there are 26 left. And then I'll be done making these. And this one is really fiddly, and so I committed to making 15 of these. There is a limited number of these things, so if you want to get them, go forth and do that. So far, I've raised about $1.3 thousand for BC Children's Hospital through Extra Life, which is fantastic. And thank you to everyone who has donated as part of that. Codename, I don't know if Dave and Justin, I couldn't catch all of their stream, but Codename has raised about $140,000 over the last 9 years for BC Children's Hospital. So that is awesome. Thank you on behalf of the families whose lives have been impacted by BC Children's Hospital. Our personal life, our family life has been impacted by BC Children's Hospital. I know they're a fantastic organization, and Extra Life is a wonderful one. So thank you for all of the donations that have happened so far. Okay, let's see. I'll go through my notes here. Yes. Oh, yes, and you can get both props if you want. You just have to select both of the incentives. And then I do ask you for your address. It's important that you tell me your address if you want me to mail the physical thing to you. So name and address as part of the incentive thing. It's part of that whole flow. So you can get both. You just sort of select them both and do them as 2 separate donations. And then in terms of donation stuff and my last bit of preamble, obviously, as I mentioned, you can do donations in all of the games by buying the charity packs. We've got charity packs for Bushwhacker 2 and Idle Champions, and all the net proceeds from those charity packs are donated through Extra Life in support of BC Children's Hospital. Okay, so are we excited? Want to make some props? I don't know. How's the chat going? Is people excited? Let's see.
Yeah, we're ready.
Someone asked Quebec included. Yes, I will mail to Quebec. Actually, and internationally, yeah, I'll just cover the postage. You know, I love making these props. They're like children to me, honestly. I mean, well, if my own children are watching, yes, I love you too. But I do love these very deeply. And the idea of getting them out into the world makes me really happy. And so if these props find their way onto your D&D table, nothing would make me happier. And I'd be happy to cover the postage to get them to you. So, okay. So let's start talking about materials. So I'm going to go through kind of bits here. I'm going to talk about materials that you'll need for this, talk about tools, and maybe up here, I guess. Up here, Wilson.
Your stream is like 3 seconds behind. I got you. I'm all over
Wilson's
it.
already on it. He's already on it.
over it.
Okay. He's a pro. So okay, I'll go through materials that you'll need. All of the stuff is pretty straightforward. I'll talk about tools and equipment, some stuff that you have around the house, plus I've got a couple suggestions of things that you can make do without, but I would strongly suggest getting, and they're not too expensive, some stuff like that. And then I've got the file that I use to make this, and so I'll show you where that is, so you can just download it and then print it, and just, from me to you, to your home D&D table, you can just use this file and make it yourself. So I'll show you that. And instead of doing like, I don't know, I was watching cooking shows on YouTube to prep for this, and they're always like, link in the description. Okay, well, that's not here. So what I did is I put together a doc, Google Doc, that if you were to print it out on white paper would look a lot like this. And so I put everything there so that you can get all of the materials. I've got some links. You may not be able to get, obviously we're up in Canada, so maybe some of these things you can't get some of the places you are, but I put links just to give you an example of kind of either what I bought or one that I found that works really well. So for all of the different materials, the equipment, the file is linked in there. I've got a link to the donation page and stuff like that. Then I actually included a link. There's a lot of stuff that I share on Twitter in terms of D&D stuff, so I included a link to all of my shared folder of stuff that I've shared. So there's like a bazillion D&D props in there. So I shared that. I should note that for the D&D props that I've made, all the digital files, feel free to make a copy, to modify them, use them in your home games. You can't sell them. You can't sell the digital files. I know this is not a big surprise probably. And a lot of it is D&D content. Not a huge surprise given it's all set around Forgotten Realms. And so it's D&D IP and is covered by the Wizards of the Coast fan content policy, which basically says like you can use it and do cool stuff with it at home, but not something you can sell. So I've shared a whole bunch of digital files. Those are all kind of linked in here. And then, because I was just, I had so much free time, I thought I'll just add a bunch of favorite tools that I love to use. Both I grouped them by cheaper and more expensive favorite tools. Papers that I love. God, I love paper, much to the chagrin of my wife. Lots of different types of paper that I love. Different resources online that are great that I just, both ones that inspired the props that I'm working on today, as well, or showing today, I should say, as well as other ones, people online who are really into this. There's actually this course on Domestika that I recently took about prop making. Theoretically, it's for film and television stuff. Obviously, I'm not doing film and television. I just use it for D&D, but it was just fantastic. So I've got a link to that. I just watched the videos, didn't do the homework. Adam Savage is super into this stuff. If you know the guy from Mythbusters, boy, he is into it. I've got links to a bunch of his things that he's done that talking about this on his YouTube channel. So anyway, so that is all there. I assume by now Wilson has shared that in chat, or is about to. So that'll be popping into chat there. So so you don't need to make notes on all this because all the notes should be there. Yeah. Okay. So what we need for this is we're going to need some cardstock. I guess, are we on the close one? Okay, cardstock. It looks like this. This is one that I get from Staples. Like I said, the link's in there. I like it's got this mottled kind of texture to it that just gives it a bit of kind of thing, and it's cheap. In general, I love working with cheap paper because then if you screw up, not a big deal. 65-pound cardstock, so you'll need some kind of cardstock like that. We are going to be aging it, so if you don't have exactly that mottled thing, that's not the end of the world. So that's one of the things that you need. You will also need some string to do, we're going to bind, that's sort of the binding along here. This is a hemp string. It's not actually like a book binding string. Usually they use waxed strings for that, which is easier to work with, so I understand why. But I really like the rough look of this, and I love that it's a bunch of different colors. It just makes, sort of built-in aging, if you will. And so I love to use this hemp string. I've got a link to it in that list of stuff. Then decaf instant coffee. The cheapest you can find. You are not drinking this, so the caffeine, not a big deal at all. A note, you want to use decaf coffee, not regular coffee, not caffeinated coffee, because caffeine absorbs through your fingers, is transdermal, the fancy way of saying that. And so we're going to be making a pretty concentrated batch of this. And if you're like me at 3 in the morning wondering why you're still awake after you've done a bunch of props and then look up, is caffeine transdermal? You'll find out the answer was yes. So decaf, cheap decaf. And as a bonus, your props smell like coffee, which I love. And then we will need some water. Okay, so that's our materials. In terms of tools, so like I said, I divided the tools into 2 types of things. Stuff that you're gonna have around the house and some stuff that you probably don't. So you want some scissors. You're gonna want, we're working with an awl, which is a thing to do the book binding. And so I found just a box. This is just a thing I found around home to use to sort of skewer stuff. So you're not gonna skewer into your table. So you want scissors. You're gonna want a box. It is nice to have a sealable container of some kind that you can put your, especially if you're going to be, I don't know, I usually do this over the weekend. So if you're going to be doing stuff over the weekend, you can store your aging mixture in there. So it's nice to have a sealable container of some kind. You're going to want a toaster oven. Imagine a toaster oven off to the side, off camera there. So you're going to want a toaster oven. You're going to want a, oven rack. And then I like to put down some parchment paper on top. You can see I was doing some testing just so that we're going to put it in the oven, on the oven rack, and parchment paper in order to dry it off after we've aged it. So those are things that everyone here probably has. Some bonus things that I would suggest that are not that expensive, but are super helpful. The first one is this. So this is a guillotine style paper cutter. I just got mine on Amazon. Nothing fancy about this, but if you're doing nice straight cuts, it's super helpful. Once again, probably not something you have around the house, but if you're gonna kind of make these sort of paper props, I strongly suggest getting one of these. Then these two things, which are, I think that's there. Yeah, that should be in frame, Yeah, okay. So this is an awl, is the fancy word for that, which is something that you use when you are making holes so that you can kind of do the binding in your paper. You don't need one of these. You can just use like a sewing needle, which is what I did initially. But these are actually really not expensive at all, so it's way easier. And you know, bookbinding is a thing that people have been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years. So yeah, just use the thing. And then you're gonna want some needles. This is the one that I'm gonna be using today. I got this awl, needles, a bunch of different threads, some creasing kind of tools for sort of folding and stuff like that. And I put a link into the document, and that was everything there. I think it was like 20 bucks on Amazon, so super cheap. Once again, you don't have to. I just used sewing needles when I was first doing this for both of these kind of tasks, but this stuff is easier, and my wife appreciates me not stealing her sewing needles all the time. So guillotine style paper cutter if you can. Awl and needle are all super helpful if you can get those things. But once again, scissors instead of the paper cutter, not the end of the world, and you can just use a sewing needle if you don't have those other things. So that is what you need. Finally, you're going to need the file, which is linked in the materials document that I shared. So you can get that and just, you know, it's Google Slides, so it should be easy enough to use. So you get that and print it out. And once again, remember, wizards don't sell that stuff, all those kind of things. So I don't know how fast chat has been moving. So maybe share the thing again, the material list again, so everyone's got it. Okay. All, yes. Not expensive at all. Yes, it's true. I should be in the dad joke competition. You know, I've been a dad for longer, I believe, than anyone else here. So I believe that makes me the best at dad jokes.
The most qualified. The
most qualified, exactly. Yes, and well, if dad jokes are supposed to be funny, then no. But I'll stick to paper ephemera. Okay. Shall we make the prop? So, first thing you're gonna do, you're gonna get that cardstock I showed you, you're gonna print it out, you're gonna print it double-sided, and you're gonna end up with something that looks like this. This is what that file looks like. So I just printed out so it's flipped like that. You can then fold it and sort of see if it's all in the spots you want. You got this area, it's gonna be discard, we're gonna be cutting that off, and then cut. You wanna cut this with scissors or I guess an X-Acto blade. So first thing you're gonna do is print it off, and then what is good, depending on how you double-side it, is just seeing what the registration is like. So you're gonna wanna look at it next to a super bright light. You can just hold it up to a light, and you just wanna see that it's generally kind of lined up. You wanna hold it up to the light so you can see the back as well as the front at the same time. And then you wanna make sure that it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of lined up. Because sometimes my printer at home double sides, but sometimes it gets a little janky and I've got to pull the paper out, put it back in, kind of get it all realigned. And so the registration can be kind of janky. And before you start cutting it and everything, it's nice to know that it's actually decently registered. Okay, then, let's see, there. So now, okay, we're gonna start. Actually, we only use this, I use this paper cutter like all the time, but this one, we only use it for one cut. So we're gonna use it for this cut. I'm gonna, now I'm older, so I'm gonna take my glasses off. Let's see. So, okay. Now, I find when using a paper cutter, what you wanna do is you wanna kind of line it up, and then I just push it in a bit. I don't know how well you can see that. Can you see that, Wilson, if I'm pushing it in? And then if you just push it in a bit, you can kind of see where the cut's gonna be. And I wanna cut, I've got a little edge on this side, and I'm gonna want it to be closer on this side. So I'm just gonna try to The trick is the registration usually isn't great on printers. So, okay, so that looks about right. Come back a bit. There we go. Okay. There. Did bring some extra pieces of paper in case I screwed that up. Okay, so there we go. We check. So nice and tight on the other side is great. So there we go. Okay, so we have that cut. Like I said, I do use this all the time, but in this particular prop, there, you're done, little guy.
Eric, I've got a question here. Inkjet versus laser. Do you have a preference on printing that? It's not going to be tainted by your aging later if you use one or the other or anything
Sorry,
like that.
Speak louder, because I'm
Inkjet
deaf.
versus laser?
Yeah. Oh, I guess you just want something, like I'd use an inkjet. I guess you do want something that's not going to bleed once you get it wet to do the aging, but I find my inkjet works fine. So I think like a lot of these things, or cosplay or any of that stuff, just kind of like do a test and see if it is bleeding, if the ink's going to bleed when you put it in some water. So yeah, I think either works. I think it's supposed to be that laser printers are better for that, but I have an inkjet at home and never had an issue with it. So cool. Okay. Any other questions I should be? Okay, so now that we've done the cut, the initial discard piece, what we're going to do is we're going to fold. So you want to take and you want to kind of match these corners up. You know, it doesn't matter if you get this a little off because you can go back and refold it, and that can just be part of the aging. So you're going to fold it, hold it down. So just sort of check, see, no, we're a little off. Like I said, it's not the end of the world if you're a little off. Because, you know, I kind of want the prop to feel like a little, like it's been around and it's lived. I often kind of think about where the props have been and what they've done, you know, what their life was like before I encountered them. Okay, so you want to fold it over like that, and then get your scissors, and you're going to cut. And what we're going to do is cut these pieces. Unlike that other piece we discarded, we're going to save those bits, and I'll show you what we're going to do with them in a sec. So I usually cut kind of like, I know there's a line there that's actually kind of very tempting to cut along. I actually cut a little below that line, a little closer to the edge. You're cutting through both sets. I'm cutting through the back and the front all together because I got it folded over, about there. Then there's a very faint line right here, which, I don't know, maybe it'd be helpful if it was less faint. Feel free to make it less faint in your version. And then you're going to cut along that. What I'm doing is I'm making, oh, shoot, sorry. I dropped my thing. There. Okay? Okay. What I'm doing is I'm making the bit that's going to be along here. That's going to be this bit here. So, okay, so cut along that side. Like I say, don't throw that away or recycle it. Don't do that yet, because we're going to use it. And then cut here, cut here. Okay. Okay, so we got it cut. Then we're gonna kind of fold this little tab thing here, just to get a sense of the size of that. And then what I found earlier versions, the sort of, I don't know, version 1 of this that I made, I just kind of would do all the binding up here. But what I found is I've got these pieces of paper, and if I put the two pieces of paper together like that, they can reinforce this tab up top just to make it more sturdy, especially when I'm putting holes in it and all that kind of stuff, and then I'm aging it. So all you want to do is you're going to tuck it in to the inside and just kind of see, because it's going to be bigger than here, and so you want it just flush. So you're going to cut this bit so it's not quite as long, and then on the inside you'll note it tends to kind of stick out a bit, and so I don't like that. I mean, if you like it, that's fine. I kind of like cutting this bit off, so I'm just going to kind of trim it. I just eyeball it. I mean, you could measure it and stuff, but I don't know. I do this for fun. I have to be so precise in my day job that I like just kind of winging things here. So, you know, kind of cutting it there. You know, it's not like totally straight in how I cut it, but unlike when I use my paper cutter for things, that doesn't really matter in this. So you want to put it in there. And then just sort of see, does it fit nicely? Yay. So yeah, so I want it I want it a little lower so it's not coming out here. And then I want it just tucked in a bit on either side so it's not sticking out there, which is what I got. Okay, so that is most of the cutting that we need to do. Then, now we're gonna do some folding. So we did the first bit to get kind of that tab. What we're gonna do now is the pages that fold. So the side that we cut super close, that's gonna be the inside kind of cover page. And then the side that's got the little line or the little extra paper space there, that's the one that we're gonna leave on the outside. So, you know, this is, there's no real science to this. I think you just sort of do some folding. The one thing that I like to do, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, is I kind of try to get it so that when I'm folding it, I'm not seeing any of this inside page on the outside when I'm folding it. Kind of, that's the ideal, and one of the reasons why you want that cut relatively close on this side. And then you just fold over the other side. Similarly, try to get it over far enough that all of the design is over. Just kind of like that's sort of what I'm going for. And once again, if you have to refold it or, you know, kind of cut it a bit, you're like, you know, sometimes I've got some extra paper in there, so I'll just trim that with scissors, just so you kind of get that. So there's like our top bit folded. So now we're gonna do the same for the bottom. Gosh, I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I am in doing it. I don't know if it's fun to watch. I've always wanted to watch streams of people doing this. I haven't found any. But boy, I love doing this kind of stuff, I gotta say. Okay, so that one, similar kind of thing, similar kind of check. Yeah, I could go in a bit more. Oh, and then the next one, fold over again. Let's see here. That. There we go. Not quite. Go over a tiny bit more. On you, and you go. There we go. Like I say, refolding it just gives it a little aging, weathering, all that kind of stuff. So, should look kind of like that. You know, I'm not crazy about these being... See that? I don't love that. That right there. I don't know, it feels weird to me, so I'm going to... actually... I'm going to use... Okay, so I lied to you all. What a great start, my thing here. I lied and I said I wasn't going to use this, but I am going to use this. Just want to tuck this in. I feel it's just a little further out than I want. Because it's going to vary on how much you cut. Actually, get this up here. How tight you cut the first piece, which I cut tighter than when I was practicing, I guess. Let's get that lined up. There. Maybe I want some like that, I think. There we go. What's that? Yes, perfect. Okay. Now we'll do the other one. So how are people finding this, Wilson?
There's a lot of Bob Ross jokes.
Yes, yeah.
Very, very relaxing.
Yeah. You know, I did a test stream, or not stream, I should say. I did a test of making it with my, you know, my kids hear so much of this stuff that they're like, oh God, Eric, don't talk anymore about this, Dad. But my eldest, Darius, his girlfriend, Karis, just loves this stuff. And so, bless her heart, she sat down with me. I tested talking to a chair, which was kind of weird, at home. And so Karis joined me, and so I had someone, an audience of one person to sort of talk to. Anyways, it did seem very Bob Ross to both of us. Okay, so there we go. That's what I'm looking for. See how this is nicely tucked in? That cover piece is nicely tucked in. I haven't clipped any of the design. Yay! Okay, so next step, I believe, I'm going to check my notes here. Bum, 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 bum. Yes, okay. The next step is I'm going to use my awl. Put my awl into it, as it were. I guess it really, the jokes write themselves. Okay, so you're going to want to get that little thing that we cropped earlier, that little bit that we cut, we're going to put it in here, and we are going to sew. We're going to do some bookbinding, the most simple bookbinding in the universe. And you know, I was so intimidated by the idea of bookbinding. I thought like, oh God, blah, blah, blah. And bookbinding can be intimidating. And there, you can go deep, 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 deep into bookbinding. But doing some really simple stuff, it's actually not that hard. And so I'm just going to show you a really simple stitch. There's actually only one part of this stitch that I'm going to do for this that is, and you know, if you get it wrong, you just pull it all out and do it again. It's really not very hard. And there's only one stitch that's, one part of it that's a trick. Okay, so we're going to put in 5 holes. And, you know, if this was your day job, maybe you would measure. It's not my day job, so I'm not going to bother. These 2 little diamonds here, that's kind of our midpoint. So we're going to want 1 hole. I always kind of do 1 sort of midpoint. You kind of maybe, where do I want it? Maybe down towards the bottom a bit. Yeah, kind of right there. Okay, and you're poking because you're poking through all those extra pieces of paper, the cardstock there. So yeah, you want to get a good hole there. Ideally, especially if you're using an awl, but if you're using a sewing needle, you want your cover on the front, because what it's going to do is it's going to make this little thing back there, which is not the end of the world, but I kind of like those to be on the back of my prop, not the front. Okay, so I've got one of my 5 holes. Then I do the 2 outer ones, and then I sort of find kind of the midpoint. Like I said, other people might measure. I just kind of eyeball it all. So I'm going to do another one about here. You don't want it too close to the edge, because it is paper ultimately. Then you don't want it to rip. I've had that happen. But you know, if it rips, it's in true Bob Ross way, you just sort of work it into the piece. I've got a couple that I've done that with. And then I want another hole over here. Once again, not too close. Ideally kind of in a line with what I'm doing. There. And then I just sort of find the rough midpoints of those holes. So I get my 5 here. Whoop. And then here. Okay. And obviously this is tapered, so you want to push fairly far in to get a nice, decent hole. So at this point, you should have 5 holes along there that look kind of like this. The holes should, ideally, go through the little thingy that we put in the middle, that support. So that'll be sewed in there, and that'll help kind of just add some toughness to this top here. Let's see, that's all good. Okay. So now we will bind. Like I said, the simplest book binding in the world. I was super intimidated by the whole idea of book binding, and I used to try to hide staples and stuff, which this is honestly much easier than any of that. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, so you're going to get one of your needles. You're going to put some of that hempen thread or whatever. You don't have to use that. My first ones, I just used some sewing thread that my wife had. But like I said, I like the color of this and the kind of rough quality to it. So we're going to start this by going at the back, and you're going to go to that middle hole in the back, and you're going to go through from the back. And the reason we're doing that is so that we end up with the piece that we're tying at the back. You're going to want to pull it all the way through, except for just enough to tie it off at the end. I know, and this is all pretty low stakes binding. So we go through, and then you're just going to want to go to the middle hole from the front, go through, and then out the back, and then through the next hole. So this is why I say it's pretty simple. You're just like going hole to hole, back to front, around. And then because I think it just gives it a more, I don't know, Water Davian industrial look, if you will, to go around the outside. So you could, you don't actually have to do that, but I like doing that. So I go around, and that lets it do, gives it this nice little bit right here that goes around. Okay. And then I'm just going to fill this in to here. Nice and straightforward the whole time, keeping my thumb pressed on that page there, on the string, the hempen rope. Okay, so now that I've done this, here's literally the only tricky part of this. So, because of the way the sewing works, you don't go back here. This is the only time you don't go to the next hole. This time you go to the hole over here. So you go all the way over, that. So you skip the middle hole and you go over. And ideally you want to have your string on one side and then you're going to bring it up ultimately on the other side and then tie around that. So you go over there, now you're on the front, you go through this hole here. Then you're going to go around the outside like we did on the other side. This is basically all just repeating what we did on the other side. Happy little holes. I need more hair if I'm going to do Bob Ross. Okay, then back. Okay, and then you know you're in the home stretch, everyone. You've been doing this. Okay, so then now a minor trick is when you're coming back through, so you're on the front, you're coming back through for that final thing. What you want to do is you want to have the needle on the other side of the thread, so that the other side, I should say, that than the first piece was, just so that when you tie it, it ties around the thread. Just a little thing to kind of add to it. So there we go. So now we've got it kind of done. And then you're just going to get your scissors, boom, through the miracle of tying, we'll have the first stage of this done. Okay, so we went from a piece of paper to now something that folds and opens, opens, opens. This way, wait, that's what I'm doing. There we go. Okay, now I just cut off this little bit here, little strands here. Don't cut your knot, of course. And it's done. Well, that part's done. So then what I like to do is I like to add just a little kind of carry piece. Just because this was inspired by a medieval folding almanac, which I've got links to in the document that Wilson shared. And if people want, we can chat about here, but depending on kind of time. But it sort of is this notion that kind of sits on your, you've got it there, kind of like a PDA of information for you. Just a sort of a bunch of stuff, and so you kind of got this with you. So I like the idea of having a thing that an adventurer going into the dungeon can kind of keep it tied to their waist or something. So okay, so to make that, what we're going to do is we're going to get our awl again, and we're going to make another hole. And this one we kind of want to line up for that middle. And we've got our hole, and just kind of doing an imaginary line up to kind of there. Don't want it too close to the top because we don't want it to rip. And we're once again going through all that extra bits of cardboard we put in there. So just put another hole like that. And then we're going to get, it doesn't really matter. I don't know. I just kind of like wing it like, how long do I want the loop of twine to be? Kind of that or so. So cut. Boink. There we go. Okay, and you just tie a knot into that loop, like that. Just gonna get rid of those two little bits here. Okay, and then we're just gonna feed this through the hole. There we go. And then this, put that through there, whoop, and then just pull it tight. So I just fed it through, looped it around, and then pulled it tight. And so now I have a nice bit of thread or hemp and twine for it to hang on. Okay, so that is kind of the base of making the thing. We now have the thing made. But it looks, I don't know, like something that was made now out of paper from Staples. So the next step is we're going to age it. So aging is going to be really two things. The first is just kind of crinkling it. So you kind of want to crinkle it. I just kind of, honestly, just sort of bend it up. I've been doing this kind of stuff for myself as a kid, and then with and making, maps and all that kind of stuff with kids. Oh, if you're going to age, do not burn the edges of your map. It's not actually how that stuff ages. Don't do that. That's not like, it's just, don't do that. Don't do that. I have strong feelings on that kind of aging. So I would say don't burn the edges. use decaf coffee. You can use tea if you don't like. My wife isn't too crazy about the smell of coffee, so I think she doesn't actually age props, but if she did, I'm sure she would use tea. You could do that. I find the decaf coffee just kind of gets me to the concentration that I'm looking for very quickly. Or you can also use, depending on the prop, we're not going to do it for this one, but Vaseline is another great tool. You can just kind of add some Vaseline along the edges. Depending on the paper, this one actually doesn't work particularly great with Vaseline, but if we have time, I've got some other props I can show you guys where I've used Vaseline. And a lot of the aging in older pieces of paper is from the oil on our fingers, and essentially Vaseline just speeds that up. So, okay, so you don't want to crinkle things. You know, you're kind of thinking about where has this been? How hard a life has this little guy had? You're going to want to focus on these little corners. If you look at old items, even if the item is in relatively good condition, the corners tend to be ones that are really kind of they take corners. I don't know, they're the heroes of these items, I guess. The heroes of paper is the corners, something like that. But yeah, corners are very much the kind of thing you want to focus on. So I just kind of crumple it. You don't want to crumple it too much. Sometimes we'll do that. Maybe we'll live crazy. So I think it looks cool if one of the bits that fold over, if one of these is maybe bent in a bit. Oh, geez. Okay. Thank you. Wow, I'm really taking way longer than I thought. Evidently doing this at home, I'm much faster. Okay, so lots of crimpling. And then we are going to mix up our solution. So you're gonna need your bowl or something to mix it in, container of some kind. You're gonna need some water. Whoop. And then your coffee. So, you know, I just, honestly, once again, like a lot of this stuff I do, I have to be very precise at work. So here, I just kind of wing it. So I'm gonna want a fair amount of coffee in there. Like I said, could be pretty intense. That's why we use decaf. You're gonna want your tray, and you're gonna want some parchment paper on it. And then this is really, I mean, I just kind of dip it in. Ooh. And in. You know, and you can do, for some of them I do multiple, like I do like a lighter wash and then a more concentrated wash. So you can kind of do that. But you know, with this one, I find just kind of doing it all, you kind of sometimes it gets in the middle a bit. Maybe I want a bit more in the middle there. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. And then I find right before I dip it in is I think this top bit, you know, needs a little extra. So I'll just get some extra in there. A bit extra on the bottom and the sides. Chunk. And then just kind of arrange it. Now, with this one, I find it's easier just to arrange it sort of like up and down like that. Let me get my thing here. Okay. Arrange it up and down like that, and then you're going to put it into your toaster oven. Boom, 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 boom. So we'll pretend that's going to a toaster oven. It's going off camera. Close enough to a toaster oven. Okay, I'm going to put these glasses on. How am I doing for time, Nick?
You got about 7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay, great. Maybe now would be a great time to answer any questions. And if there are no questions, I can talk a bit more about kind of my approach to DMing. So
Yeah,
do we have questions that we want to?
I got a couple for you.
Okay.
D2Crafty1 says, do you build other props like castles and so forth with paper as well?
Not with paper. There was a time when my kids were much younger. They're all adults now. There was a time when they were much younger that I was super into miniatures, and I used a lot of Dwarven Forge and Miniature Train and all that kind of stuff. And at that point in time, I built a whole bunch of stuff out of that. One of the things I found with if you're going to DM young children, then what you you're always kind of dealing with this issue of just how much cognitive load they're dealing with. As adults, it's not as a big deal, but with kids, you're really kind of dealing with that. And so the more that I could make the world in front of them very tangible with minis and castles and all that kind of stuff, the less cognitive load it was for them and the longer we could play. And so now that they're older, I prefer Theater of the Mind with just very simple kind of maps and stuff like that, just because it allows me as a DM to sort of tack and shift a lot more. But when the kids were young, I did that. So yeah, so not out of paper. That was all out of the normal kind of terrain type stuff.
Star Chaser 43 says, would you make a prop like this for each of your players? Or would it be like a communal sort of thing?
Sometimes I absolutely do, yeah. So one of the things that I've got, I have a whole bunch of prop things down here. Oh, I'm going to say this. Okay, if you're only going to make one prop, just one prop, and not obviously donation and stuff like that to me, think about table presence. Think about a prop that will either mean a huge amount to your players, maybe a letter from a loved one that's died or something like that, or it's a riddle, something that's part of the adventure in some way, or is going to be on the table a lot. I always think about table presence for my props. So something that's on the table. And if you're only ever going to do one thing, make a map, because maps are awesome. It's great having them there. They serve a huge gameplay kind of benefit. They're not like super tough to make. This is this wonderful paper that is, it's super cheap. Well, you buy a whole bunch of it in one roll, and it's actually designed for housing renos and stuff. It's construction paper, but not construction as in for kid construction, but construction for doing construction. And you roll it out on the floor to protect your floor. But it's super durable. It's cheap. You can do whatever you want with it. It's just great. And so maps are like, just do maps. If you're only going to do a prop, make a map. So, and if you can, buy one expensive thing that's not super expensive, buy the cheapest wide format printer you can. So instead of having all of your props be designed around 8.5 by 11 and having to worry about the aspect ratio of 8.5 by 11, you can do bigger things. 3 minutes? Okay. Wow. Thank you so much. We will wrap up. Okay. I will get the finished prop. Let me do that. Blah, blah, blah. Look at all this stuff. I will clearly have to do more of this. Somehow find a way to do this in my day job. I'm sure Dylan will be thrilled. Okay. So, when it is done, it will look something like that. Boom! Or this other one that I did not do off camera at a different point in time. No. So, you can kind of see, depending on how much coffee you put into it, it's going to kind of have this organic, that's what I love about it. It's a very organic look. Got this kind of dirty, weathered feel. So here, this is from dipping it in. You can see how the twine holds it. So that's that. So yeah, there we go. Now you can make this at home if you want. Wilson has shared all of everything in the doc there. Feel free to ping me. Twitter's probably the best place to ping me. If you want to do that, I'm Eric Remy Jordan, ERICREMY JORDAN at oh no, I guess not at anything, at Twitter, I guess. So I share a lot of this stuff there, and I do talk a little bit about work, but I mostly talk about D&D props. Okay, so you've got this. Once again, if you don't want to make this at home, you have everything. You can. I believe in you. You can make this at home, but if you don't want to, you can do a donation. I have only got 15, but I will send out 15 for donations. You can also do a donation, and you can get this sea shanty for the Bitch Queen prop if you want to do that. If you decide, like, this is cool and all, Eric, but I don't want to make that, then do that. But if you do want to make it, it is awesome. So thank you, everyone who's donated. Thank you very much for watching this stream. Thank you, Nick Wilson, our intrepid producer. I appreciate your support on this. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, all of the proceeds go to BC Children's Hospital. So our next segment is Goblins for Dinner in just a few short minutes, as soon as I get taken off and they get put on. So stick around, watch that, and have a great extra life, everyone.